Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chai with Us podcast. This is episode number 62. We are going to share with you the second part of the long conversation we had about boundaries. So, if you haven't watched the previous episode, it's over somewhere. Go watch the first part because it's juicy, juicy. Do you want to say
Yes,
hi,
it is.
Ivana?
Yes, hi, I'm Ivana from Oakville Isabel. Thank you for joining us as we continue our conversation about boundaries.
Welcome,
Um,
everybody.
we have to be assertive when we're setting our boundaries to like let the other people know what our boundary is.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about like learning how to say no, which I think is because we're a yes culture, you know what I mean? Like I think we're like conditioned to never say no and like to always like say yes to
Yeah.
things. So I
Hmm.
think that's important. And not just that, but to safeguard your space. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
your physical space. 'Cause how do we feel when somebody like another boundary is physical boundary, right? Like how do we feel when somebody is in our personal space? You know that space that's like an arm's length. You
This
feel
is big one.
uncomfortable,
This is a
right? It
big
feels
one.
very uncomfortable with those people that like talk to you like very close, like this.
This is a big one. Um, I was
What do you
somebody
do in this situation? Like, did you step away? Do
I
you say
tried
something?
to step away, and uh, I was called rude for this, but I don't think I was rude. I
Okay.
told this guy, he was speaking like, we are the middle of a pandemic, and some people don't realize it. And I don't like people to talk to me like, what one palm distance. I don't like to have people in my face. And I told this guy, you know what, like, please, I don't want to speak right now. He was very close to me and he was speaking a lot. I mean,
Mhm.
he was like, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't want to have this conversation. You are very close to me. And the guy, and I was like, listen, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk. Perdona. Sorry. The conversation was in Spanish. And I was like, seriously, I don't, can you just step away, please? I
Mhm.
don't want to talk like right now. I don't want to have a conversation. And the
And
person
what
who was with
happened? He called
me,
you rude?
no, the person who was with me was like, that was a little bit rude.
Mm.
But I
Okay.
don't think that was rude. Like, I don't
Right.
want to, I have the right to not want to speak and not want to tell you the story of my life,
Yeah.
right?
True.
It was a random stranger. And he was
Mhm.
like, oh, hi. Hi, where are
Yeah.
you from? Yeah. How many languages do you speak? What language do you speak in your country? And I'm like,
Mm.
I'm not in the mood to have this
Yeah.
conversation. Like, seriously, I'm a very polite person, but sometimes it's just like, I don't want to do this. So I
I
was
think it's
called
yeah.
rude. Do you think it was rude to?
No, I don't. And I have the same kind of story that where I was called rude as well. Like I was going to see a play with a friend and I was having coffee before that and the friend asked me who I was going with and I was like, I don't want to tell you. And she called me rude. She's like, that's rude. Why is that rude? Because I don't want to tell you who I'm going to an event with. But she totally called me rude. And that was a boundary. Like it's not something that you need to know who I'm going with. Like, you know what I mean? So you didn't want to come, so now you don't have to know who I'm going with. Like, why does it matter? But so I think it's interesting when you get called rude because you have to ask yourself, was that really rude? And maybe it has to do more so with the other person than with you.
Right, because I was like, I don't know, when someone tells me something, especially a close person, I'm like, I tried to analyze the situation. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
no. Like, this person
Yeah,
was speaking in my face. I don't want to talk to you. Like, I don't know you. You are
yeah,
not my friend. Like, I don't want to tell you the story of my life. Like, I'm not in the
yeah,
mood. And yeah, I tried to, just dismiss him, just, but it wasn't working. So I had to
yeah.
tell him, sorry, I don't want to do this. Like,
And that was a good way of like you standing up for your boundaries, especially when physical space was
yeah,
important to you.
yeah.
And I think it's always important when you're setting boundaries to check in with your gut, like you know that internal gut feeling. Like how do
Oh,
you feel in your like gut? Because you know when something is not right, and you automatically know when somebody's violating your boundary line because
yeah.
you get that like feeling in the pit of your stomach, and it feels uncomfortable. And we don't want to feel that way, and we don't have to
No,
feel that way.
we
So that's
don't.
why
We
it's
don't.
important to be assertive and to speak up.
Yeah, yeah. Good to have this chat because I was like, I was not rude. I just don't want to. And it's just like, it, especially for us women, it's just like we
Yes.
have this responsibility of being nice all the time.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
you won't go to a black man and start the conversation that this guy was having with me,
Mhm. Yeah.
and if the guy was like, "Ooh," you would go, you wouldn't be like, oh, rude. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if a guy would, not everybody will have the same reaction, but like
Mhm.
you wouldn't have this behavior with a
Yeah.
guy, or you wouldn't, you know what I mean? It's just like we
Yeah.
have this thing where if you have a boundary, but that's the thing, people think that boundaries is just like you being rude or
Yes.
thinking
Yes.
that you are above something. It's just you
Yeah.
respecting yourself. That's
Exactly.
what boundaries
Yeah.
are,
I
right?
think traveling really teaches you how to stand up for yourself and how to stand up for your space and
Hmm.
how to acknowledge your boundaries. Because at some point or another, when you're traveling, especially alone as a woman, people are going to violate your boundaries. So, what I was saying is that while you're traveling alone as a single woman, there's bound to be a time when somebody violates your boundary,
Yeah.
and you have to stand up for yourself. And you might have to do something that other people might consider rude,
Hmm.
but you know what? Maybe that'll keep you safe and healthy. You never know. So,
Yeah,
like, if
yeah,
you have that feeling in your gut that something is bad is going to happen, you need to speak up and avoid that situation.
absolutely. And I mean, if you know that like boundaries are so relative, like I have certain boundaries that some people are not going to have, and you probably have certain boundaries that I am not going to have, and this is normal, right? We have to also respect our experiences, and me being a person who has been through trauma and stuff, like there are certain things that for me are not acceptable, right? Like I don't like people screaming and shouting, and fighting. Like I would leave the situation, and I do have an agreement with my partner where if there is a situation like this, I won't be mad at anyone, but I will leave the room,
Yeah.
because for me it's very unpleasant. I don't like it. It triggers me. It's just it's wrong, right? For me, it's
Mhm.
just like too much. And I do
Yeah.
have this agreement where, you know what, if things get heated, I'm leaving. And
Mhm.
I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at the other person.
Yeah.
That's your dynamic. That's fine. That's how you sort out things, shouting at each other. That's fine, but it doesn't work for me. So I remove
Mhm.
myself, no hard feelings, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so
And I
you
like
have
that. So
to,
that's like a conversational boundary that you have, where like
yeah,
you don't want to be around other people that are having an argument or a fight.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
it may look for somebody who will be like, what do you care? They're not fighting you. But for me, it's important.
yeah. Another boundary that we didn't talk about is content boundary. So it's like what kind of boundaries are you in the content are you willing to consume, especially online, right? Like we talked about
Oh,
that and we talked about it in our last podcast. If we're seeing things that make us feel bad, then that's really not good for us. So then why are we continuing to consume it? So I think it's very important to constantly like check our content boundaries and to like get rid of things that make us not feel good.
a lot of people don't understand this. A lot of people think
Because
that,
it happens subconsciously, we don't even realize it that like what we're a lot of people don't realize that what you're consuming has an effect on you emotionally.
I mean, but you must realize it at some point, right?
I don't know. I don't know if some people don't.
Yeah, some people
That's why
don't.
they continue to do it.
Right. You're right. But it's true. I don't own a TV for I
Mhm.
don't know how long,
Yeah.
decade maybe.
Mhm.
And I do try to control what I consume. Like I watch, well, I don't watch the news. I read the news and I
Mhm.
try to see what's happening, what's going on in the world. But actually, people will tell you what's happening in the world.
Exactly. Yes, they will.
So I don't even worry about that anymore. I
Yeah.
remember having a conversation with my mom, and she was so shocked. She was like, "You don't have a TV? You don't watch the news?"
Yeah.
But how do you know what's happening in the world? This is so important.
Why do you need to know? You know what I mean? Like, what is gonna happen if you know that somebody in I don't know where like died from something? Like, how is that gonna like help
Are you
you
going to
to get through
help
your
the
day?
family?
Or exactly, like it to me makes no sense. I agree with you. Like, I've
Yeah.
really limited my TV, and for about 2 years while I was living in India, like I wasn't watching TV. And
Mhm.
when I came back, I realized how much violence is on TV. Like everywhere, like like it's very difficult to find a show or movie or anything really that does not have violence on it.
Yeah, it's true. And it's crazy. Like, I remember one day I was at somebody's home and the news were on, and it was like 30 people died somewhere. This man killed his wife, da da da, and 10 kids, da da da, da something happened. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like how many people died today? I don't want to
Yeah.
listen to this. I mean,
Mhm.
because like I don't want to sound cold because I do watch the news and I do feel the people and I do try to fight for what I believe in,
Mhm.
but it's just like I don't want to see all that. At least
Yeah.
I don't want that to be like, I don't want to fall asleep thinking about it, and I don't want to wake up and just ruin my day with all this,
Yeah.
because just think about it. And I'm such a sensitive person. Like, I'm
Mhm.
watching Handmaid's Tale and I have to
Mhm.
watch 2 episodes and it has to be in the afternoon because if it is in the evening, I'm gonna I'm gonna have a bad night to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's a freaking series, you know?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, for me, totally content boundaries all the way. Love Netflix, love HBO. I have also Amazon Prime. Like everyone in the family has a different thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to news and everything, and on Instagram, like
Mhm.
seriously, I like peaceful and
Yeah.
nice content. And I do realize that we have to stay informed, but not to the extreme. We don't need to
Yeah.
see dead people all the time. And also, if it's not hurting you, you are getting numb to violence. I don't know what's worse.
Mhm. I agree. I was just so shocked that there was that much violence, and maybe I just never paid attention to it because I thought it was just normal.
Yeah.
Like the TV that I used to watch was so normal that I didn't really like. It didn't occur to me like, wow, there's so much violence or violent speech on TV. But
Yeah.
there is, and we're starting to normalize it, which I think is really bad for us.
Yeah. And it's just like for us, it's normal to watch a war scene.
Yeah,
And like this shouldn't be normal. Like to
I
watch a
agree.
war scene and be like, are we,
Yeah.
uh, whatever.
But
I
it's
don't,
also like how you start your day. You know what I mean? Like I think it's
yeah.
important in the morning. Like we talked about this so many times in so many
Yeah.
different podcasts. When you wake up in the morning to have like a morning to yourself
Mhm.
and not just open your phone and start looking at all the notifications and reading the news and seeing all this violence
Yeah,
already.
absolutely. Absolutely. Like my mornings are getting shorter every day. Oh my God. And
Yeah.
the school year is almost ending, and my mornings are like half an hour. I have half an hour to myself, but I don't wake up to notifications. It's so easy. Just turn off the notifications so you don't receive all the bull. And when you're ready, let the notifications come in, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm. I agree. And I think one of the most important boundaries that we didn't talk about is our time. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's
Yes.
so big. I used to be the type of person that was all about her friends. Like, I loved my friends. I would do everything for them. They would do things for me too.
Hmm.
And I made my whole life about my friends and what their opinions were about me because my value was based on their opinion instead of my own self worth because I don't think I had any back then.
Hmm.
And so, like, time, people were like, I remember somebody would like call me at like midnight and we'd have like a 1 hour long conversation, and I would put their need in front of my own need for good sleep. And I was
Hmm.
okay with that. And I think through like working through it, like working through my own self value and really like prioritizing my needs, I was able to
Hmm.
like cut that out and not do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to answer the phone call unless it's an emergency at midnight to have a conversation about why somebody's in an argument with somebody else. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing, another thing that I think we spoke about it on our last episode. You can divide your time in different ways. You don't
yeah.
have to commit to spend an entire day with a person that makes
Mhm.
you feel bad. right?
Yeah.
If you do have to, if you don't want to cut a relationship and say, you know what,
Mhm.
I'm not going to see you ever again. If you want to keep the relationship out of respect or because it is family, I mean, go have a coffee for an hour. Don't spend the
Yeah.
entire day with the person, you know. That was one thing I've learned, and I shared it the other day by watching Jay Shetty's videos.
Mhm.
Like, and when you have somebody who's toxic, whose comments you don't like, whose type of conversation you don't like, but you want to keep the conversation, you want to keep the relationship, then
Mhm.
just, you know, spend less time with that person and
Yeah.
spend more time with more positive people, or
Mhm.
more time finding different people. You made me think about, we need to have boundaries to help us achieve our goals
Yes.
and achieve our life vision.
Yeah.
You said a very important thing, like, why am I talking to this person at 12 midnight when I need a good night of sleep,
Yes.
right? I totally relate to that because I need to sleep well. I don't
Mhm.
function as a normal person if I don't sleep. You know, I
Yeah.
wake up and I already know that it's going to be a tough day because I didn't sleep
Mhm.
properly.
Mhm.
So here's the boundary: I need to get a good night of sleep. If that
Yeah.
means that people will call me at 10 p.m., like my best friend will call me at 10 p.m. and say, you know, do you want to grab a beer? I'm going to
Mhm.
have to say no.
Exactly.
This has a lot to do with the respect that you have for yourself
Yes. Yes.
and what you want to do in life. Because when you
Mhm.
don't have self-love and when you don't have respect for yourself,
Mhm.
you're gonna go for that drink and you
Yeah.
don't care
It's
about
true.
your sleep. You're gonna go.
Yeah. And then you're gonna feel bad, and then, but that feeling, you know what I mean? Like your feeling of like you want your friend to like you and still be friends with you, so you think that you have to agree to everything that they want you to do, which is not the case.
Yes, but that will help your best friend,
Mhm.
maybe, because, well, she is liking the version that you are creating of yourself because you don't even want to have
Exactly.
the conversation for starters.
Yeah.
And you are killing your self confidence bit by bit
Mhm.
because you cannot stick to your word.
Yes.
And how are you going to trust yourself if you cannot say no to a freaking call? And that's just an example because you're going to
Yeah.
do this all the time with different things. I'm
Mhm.
speaking from experience.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
think
I've
it's just
done.
growing pains. Like for me, it was just like an evolution of the person I've become. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
before, it used to be yes to everything and putting my friends before myself, and now
Mhm.
it's putting myself before everybody else.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I do. I feel that. I feel what you're saying. It's true. And even though if it feels uncomfortable sometimes, it is totally worth it. It is totally
Hmm.
worth it. For me, it like changed my life.
I liked what you said because I think it's so important when you're setting boundaries to pay attention to your needs. Like
Hmm.
you said, I need to have a good night's sleep or my day, like the next day is just ruined. And
Mm-hmm.
that was you paying attention to a need. So I
Yeah.
think it's important when you're thinking about setting your boundaries, like pay attention to what are your needs. Like you also said at the very beginning, you said you base them on your values. And some
Yeah.
people have never questioned like what are my values. So I think it's important for everybody who's listening to sit down and to think about what are my values, what are my morals, what are my needs, what do I need to happen in a day to feel like a normal person, to function at optimal level, and what are
Mm-hmm.
my boundaries, and then communicate these boundaries to everyone around you so that they know that those are your boundaries. Because if you were always saying yes to going out at night and having a beer at 10 o'clock, how all of a sudden does your friend know that you don't want to do that anymore until you tell them? They just
Yeah.
assume that it's normal and they're going to continue to do that. Same thing with me. They're going to continue to call me at midnight to have these, like, hour-long conversations because I've allowed it. And so I think it's important to say, hey, maybe we can talk about this in the morning.
Yeah. Absolutely. And another thing is that people will get mad at you.
Yes,
Some
they will.
people.
Because
But
you're establishing a boundary and they're pushing back.
exactly, because they
Yeah.
are used to do, because with no, when you don't set boundaries, you are saying yes to whatever behavior they're having. And so they're like, what do you mean? Like, what happened? I can't do this,
Exactly.
but I've done this
Yeah.
100 times. So
Yeah.
yeah, people will get mad at you. Yeah, they will be mad. They'll be mad, and you will have to understand because
Well, you just have to realize, like, is your confidence and your value and
yeah,
all these things that are so important to you more important than what this other person thinks of you momentarily? Because a lot of times they'll just be mad, like, while the situation is happening, and then they'll get over it and they're like, oh, okay, now I know that we're no longer drinking beers at 10 o'clock at night, and
yeah,
they'll be okay.
yeah,
So most of the
exactly.
time, like, the anger doesn't last that long.
No,
And if
but
it does, then I
yes,
think you need to question yourself. Like, do you want to continue to be friends with somebody who's constantly violating your boundaries?
yeah. You know what? I had a friend once tell me, I liked you better before.
Wow. Okay, so
It
that
was
mean
like
that something
I was
changed.
so unhappy. Like
Yeah.
I was transitioning jobs, you know. I went to this job and I was going to travel or something, right?
Mhm.
And I knew all these new cool friends, and like I was just it was like the start of my freedom, right?
Yes.
I was just doing my life, and all of a sudden I was like, what the F am I doing here? Right? So I started going out, I started walking with these beautiful guys, and and just and I had a lot of friends that they couldn't go out because of their parents. Or I was like, what?
Okay.
We're adults. Like, what are you talking about? So I was
Yeah.
fighting for my freedom.
Sorry. This is so funny because this has not been happening at all. Like, this is probably the
No,
most
it's
phone
just
calls I've gotten
today.
in like one day.
It's the
Okay, good.
Mercury thing.
It is Mercury
Retrograde. Oh my God, I
retrograde.
lost you. I
Oh,
lost
there.
you.
Okay.
Okay, okay. So I was fighting
I
for
lost
my
you too for a
freedom.
minute.
We're back.
Okay.
So I was fighting for my freedom, and they were not. And I was like, you know what? I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna fight for my freedom, and I'm gonna do the things I want to do. So I discovered that I enjoyed certain things and that I didn't enjoy other things.
Yeah.
And so she was like, I liked you better before. And I was like, but I was so unhappy. Did you like me
Yeah.
better when I was unhappy? You know?
Mhm.
And that relationship dissolved with time, you
Naturally,
know?
probably. Yeah.
I tried to be friends with sometimes. I tried to
Mhm.
bring her over and stuff like that. But I mean, what do you mean I loved you better before? Liked you better before? Like I
I
was
don't.
freaking
Yeah.
unhappy. My life was miserable. We were
But maybe they were miserable too, and they could commiserate with you, and so they liked you when you were always
exactly.
like complaining about things, and
Oh
then once
my
you start being
God.
happy, they don't feel that way, so they can't relate with you.
Listen, one day I was having a session. It was the last session that I had with a client of mine, and she was talking about something about like her friend not liking that she had a coach and that she was changing, right?
Okay.
And I came up with, I don't know if I came up with it or if somebody else already coined this term, but I was like, we all have our pain buddies.
Pain buttons. Okay.
Pain buddy,
Oh,
like a
pain
friend.
buddy. Ah,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
that
yeah.
friend you get together just to complain about life and
Yes,
say how
absolutely. Yeah.
horrible it is. Everything is horrible, and you complain. And your friendship is based on uh, sharing the pain, right?
Yes.
That's your
Hmm.
buddy. When you're feeling bad, you go to that pain buddy and you go and you talk about your pain, and the other person talks about, and that's the relationship. So
Yeah.
when something changes, you start to become more positive. You don't want to complain all the time. You don't want to complain anymore.
Yeah.
So the other person starts to feel like, who is this person? Like, there is no use. This is so tough, but it's true. I've experienced it.
Yeah.
You have no use to this person anymore because
It's
you're not
true.
helping them.
And then you also realize like how much of their time they're complaining because while you
Yeah.
were in the relationship with them, you probably never realized it because you were doing it too. So it just
Mhm.
seemed that you were sharing the same information. But once you're out of that, you realize like, wow, this person really like talks a lot about pain or complains a lot or is just always negative. And
Yeah.
I'm not, and you don't want to be that way because you're affected by your environment.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
That's so such an interesting
it's a
phenomenon
good
because
story.
that's a
Pain
whole
buddy. Yeah.
phenomenon. Yeah, it's a whole phenomenon.
Yeah.
And we all have like pain buddies, the ones that you know who to call to tell
Yes,
about your pain. And
that's so
sometimes it's
true.
just to share, and sometimes it's just because you want to dwell over there and stay and swim. You know that person.
Hmm. It's
Um,
true.
so yeah,
I think that's it. It was a really nice conversation about boundaries, healthy and unhealthy ones.
yeah,
So
it
we always
was.
like love to hear from our audience if you're listening to us or watching us.
Mhm.
What are some boundaries that you established that you got pushed back on, and how did you handle it? What are some of your boundaries that you have now? And yeah, so let us know.
Yeah, and tell us about the new boundaries that you're going to set,
Yes,
because usually we have to do make some adjustments from time to time, no?
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I'm drinking tea today. Yeah,
Ah, so am I.
iced
We're back
tea.
to our chai.
We're back. We're chai people. We really tried to be fancy and drink wine and stuff, but it didn't work. So everybody, take care of yourselves. Thank you for being here, and see you next week.
Yeah, sounds good. Bye.
Mhm.